Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at PDK Dragon. I know we've done Ramp Dragon just recently, but this PDK Dragon piqued my interest. The only thing that I have made any major adjustment to is I'm running Triple Frenzy Dragon instead of running the new Legendary or the recreated Legendary Zinthindra, or however you want to pronounce it. Just because I don't have it. If I had it, I would actually run 3 of that instead, but I found Frenzy Drake is nice just because you can use it quite well, considering nearly every single card in this deck is Dragon. Actually, I believe pretty much everything except for Staircase is, which combos well with the PDK and everything else, just because usually you're going to have a hand of about 6 to 7 cards, so you can easily deal that AoE damage to kill off either Shadow, Haven, Portal, anything that swarms you can deal with quite effectively. Of course, having that legendary will up the win rate of this deck quite a bit. Otherwise, it's pretty similar to what I has already shown on his channel. If you want to go check out the Shadowverse channel, which you can find in the Discord or anywhere else, they're pretty much everywhere now. So, hopefully you guys will enjoy this, and we'll take a look at a couple games. So first up, we have some Burn Rune. Burn Rune, semi-popular still. Obviously, it is quite a good deck, quite solid. I have covered this deck, I think, in a couple of different kind of variations at the moment now. Keeping a Blazing Breath is always good, and I always find holding onto the Prime Dragon Keeper as an advantage to me. Of course, not holding onto it is an option. I'm not the best PDK player, so I will probably make some mistakes here and there. That is to be pretty expected when I'm not that familiar with how PDK should function. But we do end up being able to line this Blazing Breath up quite nicely. There isn't many other uses for it in the early game here other than to hit the first play so I can limit the damage I take. And of course, the only other problem I have with this deck is the fact that my early game seems really weak. No matter what I do, I just can't seem to compete with the early game very well. I'm usually passing, you know, turn 1 through 4 until I can get up to the Alia. That, or I'm just playing things like that Maelstrom Dragon card that puts 2 into hand on 3 and stuff like that, which really hurts you in the early game, because as you can see here, your opponent can just build a board against you quite effectively without too much effort at all. But I do get to throw down my Dragon Sword, which means I get the extra point. I can line up Sybil in the next turn because that will be turn 5, and that'll put us on 7 to go into PDK the following turn. So now it's just a matter of not taking too much damage before then. They do decide to throw the Mage of Nightfall to my face, setting me to 12. I can deal with both of these quite effectively. Sybil's going to be amazing for that. So we do decide to trade, then use the Sybil as a 5/6 body to get rid of that 4/4, leaving it with 2 health and a good way to just heal up. So one advantage to this deck, you do stack those Sybils, so being able to play those, you can actually get some of that early game health back, which makes it a little hard for something like Rune to deal with. And I draw into my Frenzy Drake, which is actually a half decent draw. And I do love this PDK double Maelstrom Dragon combo that you can pull off really effectively, getting you like 8 damage to face once you include an Evolve, and clearing off at least 4 damage on board. Well, 4 health on board, sorry, which is really effective. It's one of the many things I like when you're playing PDK, that you can throw that down. Then we see Magic Illusionist and a Chain Lightning. To be expected, Chain Lightning is going to be basically their infinite value. Lucky for me though, we actually have perfect lethal with those Phoenix Rider. I wanted to think about it for a sec, and throwing that Phoenix Rider down gave us exactly 5 damage on it, and lethal to face. Following up that Rune game, we go straight into a Shadow matchup. Shadow's semi-difficult, I guess. You can usually clear off some of that early stuff because it is quite low, so you're not taking too much damage. It's more the Hector turns that are a problem. If you get to those and you're not already pretty much won, you're going to be screwed. At least that's what I've found with the deck so far. But like I mentioned, not a pro PDK player. So Elia Dragon Sword, Draconic Fervor, Beowulf. Beowulf's actually okay. I haven't really had a situation where I've needed to use him much just because we haven't had many big drops and I haven't had many mirrors. But I can definitely see where having that kind of removal would be really nice. Do decide to just throw the sword out. I know what Shadow can do in their early game, and them removing this 2-2 just isn't something they can do easily. So having it out is normally going to be completely fine. It'll at least allow me to contest the board a little bit here. And ping a little bit of damage in. Which is what this deck's quite good at doing. I do miss out on that ramp though. Kind of unfortunate, but I think soaking up the damage is just that much more valuable to me in this early game. Lurching Corpse, my arch nemesis. Always coming down when I don't want it. And a perfect draw. So I still get that ramp, which is nice.
I won't let you harm Mr. Dragon.
So this is the only play I was a little iffy on. I probably should have just killed the Lurching Corpse maybe. It would have meant I lost my 4-3, but I mean, the Lurching Corpse is going to be difficult no matter what I did. Maybe I made the right play because they do end up using the Lurching Corpse there anyway. But leaving it on board just makes it harder to use Prime Dragon Keeper. But I do get to drop my Sybil. Dropping that on curve, giving yourself a boost. Always great, especially when you're going into those PDK turns where having 8 play points is really, really nice to have. Of course, they do drop another Lurching. Lurching and PDK really don't go together very well. I mean, it's basically instant clears. But I don't really have any other choice other than to throw this PDK down and hope for the best. I mean, I could bait them out a bit, but it's just too good. So taking the risk, letting the Lurching go, do what it wants. I probably could have just played that 2-1 instead, rammed it into the Lurching, because that would have left me in the same spot that I wanted to be in instead of in this one where I'm only going to get 1 extra damage to the face anyway. So ordering could be pretty important coming up against those, and something that I'll definitely live to consider in the future. So the great thing about this though is, since Shadow is the way they are, Frenzied Drake is amazing. Being able to absolutely dominate them and clear them is just awesome, and Staircase is about the only thing I'm a little iffy on. I don't personally like Staircase much anymore just because of the way the metas are, but in PDK it does have a reasonable place, I guess. So we get to clear off all of this. We're not going to die to Hector in this turn. We do have a 7-7 on board, which is going to be really difficult to remove without an evolve or without playing Hector and just trading everything they have. I mean, it definitely wasn't something that would be easy to do. And with a full board now, these riders are just crazy. Rider is great against Shadow. Being able to pull a full 7 damage off it. Plus we had the evolve as well, so we could easily have pulled 16 damage to face in that turn. Last but not least, we have another Rune. Rune is, like I said, pretty popular at the moment. If you are looking to counter Rune, I'm not really sure what you want to do because Rune countering is not easy now. Well, it never really was. I mean, Burn Rune has always been a kind of deck that's never had really a natural enemy so much as just being, you know, lacking burn damage in the late game. So I guess Haven, like Healing Haven, was a fairly good matchup for Burn Rune just because usually you'd, you know, outdo them. But we just don't have those heals anymore, so you can't even keep that in check that easily. But they do play Chain of Calling, so that makes me a little iffy on what they might be playing. I don't really see any Burn Rune using Chain of Calling these days. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen Burn Rune use Chain of Calling. So it makes me think it's more of a Daria, or maybe even a... well, D-Shift's gone, so we're not worried about that. So it's probably definitely a Daria deck. That's the most likely outcome. There is a Daria deck I am trying to find out about, and I really want to make a video on. Hopefully that will be one of my next ones. So you guys can look out for that. Golem Assault, that's pretty normal. And at this point we have a full hand and just need to dump something on board, so Beowulf coming down just to dump onto the board. I think the Scythers have a bit more value and the Maelstroms also have a little bit more value just because they are all PDK synergies and they're low cost. Whereas Beowulf, freeze and removal, isn't quite as good as Scyther. So spending him here is probably just the better spot to do it. Now, pretty much have to play it. I don't have anything else in my hand that I can actually play this turn that would be any good. So Scyther coming down just so I can go face, or sorry, trade with the board. More worried about taking face damage than not taking face damage. Plus I get to keep these at 2/1s, which Rune is a little iffy on removing altogether. Usually I'll have to trade something. So we can play a Rider. I mean, it's going to have 3 attacks, so it's going to get rid of this 4/2. We've already got another one in hand, so I'm not really worried about that. And knowing what Rune does, I doubt we're going to see a massive flood, or at least a substantial enough one that's going to be a problem. Really not sure what this Rune deck's doing, though. It is a really odd deck. Like, seeing all the cards they're playing, it's not what I'd expect at all. But turning rats, really not a good idea against PDK a lot of the time, just because I can whittle your health down very, very quickly. So I'm already able to go for an extra 6 damage on face just from the cards on board there. Plus we did get that 1 ping from PDK, so we got 7 damage in that turn, not counting the flame rat's initial 2 damage. And now all rats. Come on, man, what are you doing to me? Playing all those rats on board? Jeez. The one bonus is, with rats, I can actually use Phoenix Rider as well, if I need to. But it doesn't look like I will, because I do have Maelstrom and I have Dragoon Scyther, as long with a PDK. I mean, honestly, there's so many ways I could set up lethal with this hand that it really wouldn't have been a worry. Just purely storm damage is absolutely busted, as always. So we get to go face, and yeah, they concede because they're really going to die to that quite quickly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list to this deck in the description below. Don't have much to say about the PDK deck overall, other than that I'd recommend running the Legendary over the Frenzied Drake, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. She's just so much better for this deck overall, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you next time. See ya.